Welcome to today's lecture. Today we are going to discuss about subcutaneous immunotherapy for allergic diseases. We are going to discuss about indications and contraindications for immunotherapy, the technique, adverse reactions, and follow-up of a patient for subcutaneous immunotherapy. So basically, what is immunotherapy? Here we are going to administer allergen to which the patient is sensitive. So why we are going to inject allergens when we already know that patient is sensitive for that and is at risk for developing reaction to that. We are going to administer these allergens in very small quantities and gradually going to increase the dose, which results in modulation of the untoward immune response to that allergen and is expected to alleviate allergic symptoms of the patient. So this is the basic principle of administering immunotherapy. Basically, there are two routes by which immunotherapy can be administered: subcutaneous and sublingual. Subcutaneous means we are going to inject below the skin, and sublingual means administer the allergen below the tongue from which it is absorbed. What are the indications for immunotherapy? First, we have to confirm that does the patient have a disorder that responds to immunotherapy? This includes conditions like allergic rhinitis with or without allergic conjunctivitis, allergic asthma, or patients with both allergic rhinitis and allergic asthma. Next, confirm, is the allergen clinically important? This can be seen when patient has symptoms upon natural exposure to the allergen and the presence of specific immunoglobulin E to that allergen, demonstrated either through allergen skin testing or serum test for allergen specific IgE. Next, confirm, have other measures been maximized? The clinician should ensure that the patient has maximized environmental control measures and is on an optimal medication regimen. This is because medications are relatively easy for most patients to use, and when effective, they provide relief more rapidly than immunotherapy. So if disease can be controlled by simple medicines itself, that is preferable to take long course of immunotherapy. Or once the option of medication has been exhausted and patient is not responding, then only proceed with immunotherapy. So this is again a summary of the clinical indications for allergen immunotherapy. They include symptoms of allergic rhinitis, allergic conjunctivitis, allergic asthma, or any combination of these disorders after natural exposure to air allergens, and demonstrable evidence of clinically relevant specific IgE and at least one of the following: poor response to pharmacotherapy, allergen avoidance, or both; unacceptable adverse effects of medications; wish to reduce or avoid long-term pharmacotherapy and the cost of medication; or possible prevention of asthma in patients with allergic rhinitis. So any one of these four along with the first two must be there to consider for immunotherapy. So the question is whether to administer one or multiple allergens. The practice varies in different populations. In United States, they administer mixtures of all of the major relevant allergens to which the patient has been shown to be sensitive. Whereas in Europe, the practice is to administer only the one or two allergens that appear to cause the most symptoms for that individual patient. This is under the assumption that immunizing the patient against one allergen can reduce overall allergic reactivity. What should be the composition of allergen extracts? There is variation in the composition of extracts used for immunotherapy. This has also been a problem. Efforts are underway to standardize important aeroallergens, which is a process that ensures the composition and potency of specific extracts. Careful selection of patients is very important. Patients for whom allergen exposure is clearly an important trigger are more likely to experience meaningful benefit. In contrast, subcutaneous immunotherapy might not produce clinically meaningful improvement in a patient whose asthma is largely triggered by viral illnesses or irritant exposures like tobacco smoke, even if they are sensitized to several allergens. New onset allergic asthma may be more responsive to subcutaneous immunotherapy than long-standing disease. For example, a school-aged child with new asthma symptoms in response to a pet may benefit more from immunotherapy than a middle-aged patient with lifelong asthma who had increased wheezing after bringing a new animal into the home. How long benefits are going to persist after discontinuation of immunotherapy once the course is completed? Several more years of continued relief is typical after subcutaneous immunotherapy is discontinued, although there is a risk of earlier relapse that is not predictable. So likely there is going to be benefit for several years, but it is not guaranteed. This immunotherapy has some preventive effects also. It is observed there is reduction in the short term, that is less than 2 years, risk of developing asthma among patients with allergic rhinitis. So if a patient of allergic rhinitis is receiving immunotherapy, there is less chance that he is going to develop asthma as compared to a similar patient who is not on immunotherapy. Then there are some special patient groups. They include severe or unstable asthma. The administration of subcutaneous immunotherapy may impart unacceptable risk for patients with severe or unstable asthma because these individuals are at greater risk for systemic allergic reactions involving severe bronchospasm. Subcutaneous immunotherapy not to be administered to patients with asthma who have a forced expiratory volume in 1 second of less than 75% of predicted. So this is only for patients with mild asthma. What about pregnancy? Subcutaneous immunotherapy is not usually initiated during pregnancy, although it may be continued in women who are receiving the therapy prior to becoming pregnant. Because there is chance of adverse reactions while initiating immunotherapy, it may become difficult to manage the patient if she is pregnant. So don't start for the first time while patient is pregnant. Then there are some other groups of patients like patients of beta blocker and AC inhibitor therapy. These patients may be at some specific risk. Patients on chronic beta blocker treatment for cardiovascular disease are at some risk for a poor outcome if they have an anaphylactic reaction to an immunotherapy injection, since they may not respond properly to epinephrine or other vasopressor agents used to treat the reaction. So if patient develops anaphylactic reaction, treatment is epinephrine or adrenaline, which is a beta agonist drug. If patient is on beta blocker, these beta agonists may not function properly. So patients will end up in more trouble. So these patients on chronic beta blockers are at increased risk. Similarly, patients receiving angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, these are drugs which are given for hypertension. These patients are theoretically at increased risk during anaphylaxis, possibly due to the inhibition of conversion of angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. Another special risk patients are patients having autoimmune diseases. Theoretically, modulating immune system can flare up autoimmune disease because these diseases are because of variation in immunity of the patient. So decision to administer subcutaneous immunotherapy to a patient with concomitant allergic and autoimmune disease be made cooperatively with the patient after careful consideration of the potential risks and benefits for that individual. What should be the duration of therapy? The beneficial effects of subcutaneous immunotherapy begin during the first year of therapy and continue throughout the period in which the patient receives injections. An initial course of immunotherapy should consist of 3 to 5 years of maintenance treatment. Monitoring. Patients receiving subcutaneous immunotherapy should be evaluated clinically each year to determine if any adjustment in dose or allergen mix are indicated. Subcutaneous immunotherapy should be continued for at least 3 years in those who experience subjective benefit. There are some disorders that are not treated with immunotherapy. Among allergic diseases, these include food allergy, oral allergy syndrome, and latex allergy. In these patients, immunotherapy is not going to help. Conventional schedules include a build-up phase and a maintenance phase. During build-up phase, 1 to 3 injections are given per week, every week. That lasts for a number of weeks. In maintenance phase, this frequency of injections is reduced. Here injections are given once in every 2 to 4 weeks, and this is continued for a period of years. There are faster as well as slower versions of conventional schedules. The clinician may choose a schedule with a slower build-up for the patient at increased risk of systemic allergic reaction. So if we see that patient is at high risk, start giving injections at a lower dose and increased frequency, increased intervals. Whereas if chance of adverse reactions are less, we can proceed faster. During the maintenance phase, the interval between injections is usually increased from once weekly up to a maximum of once monthly for inhaled allergens. The recommended duration of subcutaneous immunotherapy is 3 to 5 years of maintenance. How to give the injections? Immunotherapy injections should be given using a calibrated small volume syringe, usually a 1 ml syringe with a 26 to 27 gauge non-removable needle, the one with which usually the sugar test is done. The site should be wiped with an alcohol swab before giving the injection. Injections should be given subcutaneously in the lateral or posterior middle portion of the arm. What are the adverse reactions to immunotherapy? It can be local reactions or systemic reactions. Local reactions are usually injection site reactions, which result in redness, pruritus, and swelling. Local reactions can be reduced by pre-medication with antihistamine. Most serious systemic reactions occur within 30 minutes after the injection. Therefore, a 30-minute waiting period following injection is recommended. These reactions may range in severity from mild rhinitis to fatal cardiopulmonary arrest. It is common practice following a systemic reaction to reduce the next injection to the previously tolerated dose, and in cases of very severe reactions to an even lower dose. Documentation is very important, and important components of documentation include informed consent, which includes estimates of potential benefit as well as a discussion of the risk of severe or fatal systemic reactions. A longitudinal record of each visit for injection should be maintained, and any reactions that occurred immediately after or between visits should be documented. Follow-up. Patients should be followed up every 6 to 12 months while receiving immunotherapy to assess compliance, clinical improvement, and adverse reactions. Repeat skin testing and serial laboratory testing are not usually performed. So the reference for this lecture is from UpToDate website. Thank you.